It is perfect for our reopening of the Frick collection in 2025 for one of the centerpieces, the garden court fountain, to be as resilient as it should be. You really shouldn't notice too much of a change, although what you don't see is really what we've done to the fountain, which is structurally, the fountain is now sound. Mechanically, it's been improved. Aesthetically, the fountain has just a new glow about it. The garden court was designed by the architect John Russell Pope in the early 1930s as part of the conversion from the residence to a museum. He, along with the director at the time, Clapp, and the trustees, all wanted a place of tranquility with a water feature. This was outside, and it was enclosed to basically a conservatory. EverGreene Architectural Arts, a historic preservation company, utilized documentation from our incredible archives department. It was an invaluable resource to have for the restoration and the recommendations that they would put forth to us. We started in January 2020 with an assessment. EverGreene Architectural Arts put together a very thorough report that basically documented everything that needed to be done to the fountain itself. We were able to really assess very thoroughly all of the cracks, all of the staining, all of the oxidation. That's when the project really began, which is the removal of all of the coping stones, which were carefully restored off-site. As that was happening, the team from EverGreene began to work on the fountain proper. And one of the biggest things that they did was they reset the upper basin, which was misaligned, which prevented the fountain from reflecting a uniform water feature. In order for the upper basin to be leveled, it had to come off the base. And so a gantry was set up, and several workers, along with rigging equipment, were brought in to carefully lift the basin. Also, that accommodated access for the piping that needed to be threaded through. The old piping was removed and new copper piping was installed. So it was actually very opportune for us. We also added a specialized display pump and a UV pump, as opposed to the way it was before, where our wonderful team here used to have to clean it every week and drain the fountain every week. Now the water circulates on its own and it has its proper filtration. The finial crown has 3 rings of sprayers just on that finial alone. EverGreene also painstakingly removed those very delicate pieces of those sprayers and cleaned them off-site and reinstalled them. We cleaned off a lot of the calcifications and the staining that had formed underneath the basins, in the stem, on some of the coping stones. You really wouldn't necessarily see them, especially when the fountain was on, but they were present and they were decaying the fountain. EverGreene also did the cleaning of the garden court walls and columns to bring it to a certain level of uniformity. At some point, this entire courtyard was filled with scaffolding that went up almost to the laylight, because in addition to the work on the fountain and the limestone walls and columns, we also did work to the laylight glass and the skylight above. For many visitors, this is such an iconic location. You stroll through the galleries and you see these beautiful works of art, and then you come here into a sculpture garden where there's a fountain and nature envelops you. I'd like for the garden court to be a place of solace where our visitors can come in and unwind from busy New York life.